I'm going to believe, though, that the folks who are subscribed aren't subscribed because they're here for plucky, quick edited, fancy Mr. Beast style logic tutorials or whatever. I want to believe that if you're subscribed and if you're watching, it's because you are serious about the production, library, and sync music industry, and you are committed to really learning how to be a composer in this space sustainably. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Qs podcast, your weekly insight into the world of production, library, and sync music. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go, I just want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. Also, as always, a huge, massive, gratitude-filled Thanksgiving Day thank you to the family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Qs who keep all of this happening. It would not be possible without their support. If you want to learn more about how you can join us at 52 Qs while also scoring a ton of subscriber perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, pitching to real music libraries, be sure to tune in a little bit later in today's episode. Also later in today's episode, I'm going to be playing for you one of my recent tracks that was composed using only sounds from Matt Bowdler, aka The Unfinished, sounds from his Colossus 5 patch set, which just came out. No, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for this library with my actual money, but we're going to be taking a listen to that a little bit later. As far as today's episode, we turn 200. Yes, this is the 200th episode of the 52 Qs podcast going back to 2021. But what I thought would be really good, especially on today, which is here in the US, it is Thanksgiving. And I don't know, it's kismet that this episode comes out on the same day as Thanksgiving because I'm filled with gratitude. But also what I thought would be a cool idea, maybe give you a chuckle or two, is to look back on what I've learned from doing 200 episodes of podcasts, coming up at the end of our fourth year, coming up at the end of our third year of the 52 Qs community over on Mighty Networks, and 6 years of the 52 Qs kind of community just existing, back when it existed on Facebook. And so I wanted to take a look back, what I've learned, what I would possibly do differently, and what are some of the lessons to take away from this as we turn 200, our bicentennial. So first of all, if you were there at the beginning, and if you watched episode 1 of the 52 Qs podcast, then congratulations. But in 2021, I set out to write 1 Q a week and kind of document that whole process. And at the time, I was calling it a vlog. What is up, YouTube? This is Dave Croft. I'm doing something new this year for 2021. I am committing to a weekly vlog, right? Where I kind of recap the week before and kind of hopefully take you kind of on my journey of writing music all year long. This is a little bit in conjunction with the Facebook group that I moderate over at Facebook, 52 Qs. You can get there by going to 52qs.com. And the idea is that this isn't really some slick production or anything, but just kind of an overview of last week, maybe some things that I learned. And I got to tell you, I'm learning lessons even moments before I went to go record this very video. But did you know that 2 years earlier, January of 2019, I actually tried this before? What is up, everybody? This is Dave Croft. If no one has said it yet, Happy New Year. I hope that you had a good 2018, and I hope that you have a lot of really cool things happening in 2019. Speaking of cool things happening, what I'm doing this year, I'm trying something new. And I've started up a Facebook group called 52 Qs that you can join us over at 52 Qs. It's facebook.com/groups/52 Qs. I'll have a link to that in the description. And this was inspired by a book by Dan Graham called A Composer's Guide to Library Music. And in that book, he talks about kind of ongoing creativity and the motivation to keep going and to write at least one cue a week. And if you do that, then at the end of a year, you will end up with 50 plus 52 cues that you can then sell to publishers and to really look towards making a living making music. And so every week I will be. So why isn't this the 300th episode of the 52 Qs podcast? Why don't I have an extra 2 years of episodes in the can? Well, that actually leads me to my first lesson and the first takeaway. And these lessons aren't just for making podcasts or YouTube videos. These are lessons that can be applied to really any creative endeavor. And the first lesson is this: whatever you're doing, it has to be sustainable. You have to figure out how you can do this week after week after week, not get totally fried, not get way too ambitious with what you want to do. And you have to figure out how your output is sustainable. And there were 3 episodes, weeks 1, 2, and 3 in 2019. But by then, I didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do the editing. I didn't have, I was trying to write. Obviously, I was teaching full time, and it was just too intense. And so I could not sustainably produce episodes because I would record them. I didn't have the Stream Deck. I wasn't using OBS. I wasn't using these tools that makes these types of things a lot more sustainable for me. Instead, I would record them like I would a tutorial video for Full Sail or whatever. And then I would go back in and edit it and position the camera and position the desktop and do call outs where you can zoom in and circle things and all of that. I wasn't doing any of that in real time. And so I was doing a ton of editing. And after 3 weeks, it just kind of fizzled out. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of bummed me out. And I did feel kind of like a failure about it, because here was this thing that I made this big YouTube proclamation. I am going to do this thing. And then after 3 weeks, nope. I just ended up having to stop it. And so I eventually got over it, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about video editing. And it wasn't until 2 years later, in January of 2021, where I really was like, okay, I am going to do this. By that time, the community had grown over there on Facebook. We were pushing 1,000 members. And so by 2021, we are getting on the other side of the pandemic, right? So a lot of us have a lot more time on our hands, and things like OBS and Stream Decks, which I use to control all of the different camera angles. And if you see the transitions and everything, especially during the live streams and Zoom sessions, those are all done in real time. And I had spent a large portion of the pandemic learning about these tools. Now, it still wasn't where I wanted it to be, but it was improving. So the first lesson is, whatever you're doing has to be sustainable, because if not, you're going to burn out. And so even though the false start, 2021 kicked in, and I was committed to I'm just going to turn on the camera and I'm just going to talk. It wasn't going to be this big thing. The first episode is poorly lit. My beard is crazy, which is another lesson that I learned, which is a big, wild, out of control mountain man looking beard was not really a good look for me. I'm much happier with where I'm at now. Funny story about that. And I've talked about my beard guy. I actually go to a barber here in town. His name is Jordan, and he works at Atomic Barber in Winter Park. And every 8 weeks or so, I go in and get my beard trimmed. I sit down, they have the whole like hot towel treatment and straight razor, and obviously nothing on the head, but man, he will sit there like a sculptor, like just like trimming out parts. And when I first went in, and we were going for like just an all one length thing. I just want an all one length, because in my mind it all just kind of hung straight, but that's not really what happened. It kind of flared out. It didn't look all that great, and I have video evidence to prove it. If you don't believe me, you can go back even further and see Dave with a crazy beard. But then one day I said, okay, you know what? Let's kind of taper down the sides, and let's see how that looks. And you can see it happen in the video somewhere around 2/3 of the way through 2021. You'll see my beard go from kind of wide and poofy to kind of straight. And when I said that, he's like, oh man, I'm so glad you said that. And I was like, wait, time out. You're my barber. You're supposed to be, you know, like watching out for me. So if something doesn't look good, I am trusting you to tell me. And he's like, well, you just seem so sure about what you wanted that I thought, like, man, you dig it? So awesome. He wasn't going to argue with me. I mean, I don't think it looked bad, but I think, you know, a little bit more sculpted look, I think works better, especially with my face shape and no hair and all of that. But the confidence in knowing what I wanted and just going in there and we're going to let it grow out. And it wasn't until I kind of got right with, hey, let's try something else, that he was able to help out with, and he agreed. Turns out he agreed with it like the whole time, but I do wish he would have told me a little bit earlier. I probably could have gotten ahead of it. So yeah, the wild beard wasn't a good look for me. All that having been said, I'm really happy with my glasses game, and over the course of my episodes, you will see my glasses change. But I ultimately have settled on the white glasses, which are pretty well received. Every now and then a couple of people will get kind of grumpy about them in the comments, and that's fine. That's fine. Internet strangers are gonna internet stranger. But I got a couple of different pair, would swap them out, and inevitably every time I wore the white pair, then somebody would say something. I would get comments like at the grocery store or on campus from students or in Zoom sessions or whatever. People are like, hey, cool glasses. And I eventually just kind of kept wearing them until I got recognized by the glasses. And this wasn't anything that I intentionally set out to do. It wasn't any marketing strategy. It wasn't any kind of branding concept that was focus grouped or anything. No, I kept getting compliments on my glasses, so I kept wearing them, which meant I kept getting compliments, which meant I kept wearing them, and then going to the Taxi Road Rally or going to the Production Music Conference and people recognizing me primarily because of the white glasses. And just for the record, these are Zennies. There's a company called Zenni Optical, and they have a lot of different colors, red and yellow, and like in this style, clear, black, and blue. And so I got a discount, because I was buying several pairs, and I got them all. They are prescription glasses, and they're even progressive glasses. See my previous, hey, you just turned 50 episode from last year this time. And so, yeah, they're just Zenni Opticals, and I really, really enjoy them. Okay, so some other lessons that I learned. Little things can make a really big difference, like a really big difference. Looking back through my episodes, I can see obviously my beard game change. I can see my glasses game change, but the lighting in the background had a huge change. Going back to the 2019 episode, it's just a webcam, like a Logitech webcam, which was like $99. It wasn't expensive at all. I don't even think it was 1080p. I think it was 720p, and just standard kind of overhead room lighting. I depended on my computer monitors to do as much lighting as possible, but I would update things slowly. I would get a key light, which is what this light is. Because I kind of use a 3-point lighting system here in the office, or in the studio rather. I have a key light here. I have a hair light, which kind of backfills. And then I have a fill light, which kind of lights the right side of my face. Those are the only 3 lights actively pointing at me. All of the other lights, these are just like Amazon landscaping lights. I think I got them like 4 for $6 or $60. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 colored lights behind me, 4 kind of painting and washing the background. And I have 1 that is for my side view whenever I throw to my side camera for live streams and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I just incrementally added these things, and the lighting makes a huge difference. You know, the first few episodes, once I got my key lighting and everything, it's just like an inky blackness back there. I wasn't a fan of that. The landscaping lights is something that we had started doing actually at my church. This was before COVID, I guess, is when we got the lighting. It might have been during COVID, during the lockdown. But we just got these cheap little landscape lightings that we could run using a Wi-Fi app, like the smart home app. And so, you know, the lighting guy, shout out to Mark, man, who was running the live stream and the lights, he had scenes. And so like during the music, it would be this scene. During the message, it would be this scene. During like prayer, it would be this scene. And so he was really, really good at that. And he turned me on to these lights, and I've got them all connected through my Echo, right? And so when I say, Alexa, I'm done streaming, all the lights turn off. That's pretty handy. Alexa, I'm streaming. All the lights come on. Because it would be a real pain to like go through and turn them all on. But this is incremental changes. So yes, the lighting makes a big difference. But the next big lesson is little small incremental changes lead to exponential results. Let me say that again. Small incremental changes lead to exponential results. So if you look at my videos today, which I think the lighting looks pretty good, I've gone in through OBS, and there's a custom LUT that makes this hopefully look kind of cinematic. I'm running at 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second. I've got a Canon M200 camera with a nice lens so that it gives a nice soft bokeh for the background, right? These were all incremental changes. Because if I were to give you a big list, and actually I think in the description there is literally a big giant list of all the things in the studio, then that would A, be really expensive, and be really exhaustive to kind of set up. And so no, I don't expect anybody to just go on a shopping spree at Amazon or Best Buy or whatever, buy everything and go set up your studio. But these little small changes, if there's something that you want to change, and changing it all at once feels overwhelming, then just change one thing. And then the next time, change something else. Then the next time, tweak something else, so that fast forward 4 years of videos and you get with something that you're proud of. I am very proud of the shot that you are looking at right now. I'm very proud of the audio that you're hearing. I'm proud that I'm using a nice microphone, but I didn't always have that microphone. The first episodes were just like me talking into a webcam mic. And it might even have been like an SM58 off camera. I'm not sure. But these small incremental changes yield exponential results. Which leads me to my next lesson. And that is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get going. You don't have to get it right. You just have to get started. And that can be some of the toughest things, because if you're setting out to do something and you start comparing yourself to the people that you admire and the people who are future versions of you, then you are comparing present you to a version of them that has worked through all of these steps, often through incremental changes. You're seeing the end result of a lot of work. And so if you compare yourself to them, then that can be really overwhelming. Like there's no way, if I wanted to start a YouTube channel, there's no way that I can look at Dave's stuff and just have it look exactly like that. No more than if you listen to a John Williams score and you're like, man, I barely know how to notate notes on a page. How do I get there? Then no, small incremental changes, and don't let somebody else's success and somebody else's current state of how they do things keep you from doing what you want to do. And that can be a real block for many. It's a block for me. But you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going, because getting it going yields momentum. And the other thing that gets in the way of all of this is like perfectionism and getting things absolutely perfect, especially for me, over the last 4 years, having a weekly production schedule, which every single week, hopefully, barring any, colonoscopies or major vacations or hurricanes or whatever, these weekly production schedules can be really, really intense, which is why, if you'll see my first point, it has to be sustainable, because if it's not sustainable, then every single week when it comes time to, you need to make a video, if you haven't sustainably figured out how to do it, and if you're so overwhelmed with all of the tools that you don't have or whatever, then you get kind of shut down. But if you can sustainably do it, if you can talk about things that you feel confident in talking about, you feel knowledgeable in talking about, as far as making videos, then you're much more likely to get things out of the door. But even if they're not perfect, still get things out of the door. Keep rolling, keep going forward, and the next time around, make it better. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get going. Another lesson I've learned from doing 200 episodes of this podcast is try things. Just try new things. Even if it sucks, just try new things. Because if it sucks, or if it's bad, or if it's not sustainable, then guess what? You can stop doing it. See also : the year of taxi. That was a good idea, and for 17 weeks, it was really happening. But there reached a time it was like, nah, this is not mine to do anymore. And so instead of keeping a promise to you out there on YouTube, which is commendable, I had to do what was best for me as a business owner, as a creative individual, as a husband. I had to do what was right by me in my career. So I stopped doing it. And guess what? The world didn't end. Like nobody came through my windows SWAT style to force me to keep doing my year of taxi. In fact, most people kind of understood. For stopping that year of taxi, I got a lot of support. And I think it was a lesson in transparency, a lesson in just being real with people. But yeah, if you try something and it sucks, you can just stop doing that thing. And that's okay. Other things that I tried and stopped doing, and I'm continuing to try new things, like throttle thoughts here on the channel. The throttle thoughts, which was last year, I would record myself on my motorcycle and just have kind of, I said this the other day, kind of brain drippings, just kind of, here's some things I'm thinking about. And so that was the throttle thoughts. I stopped doing it because it wasn't necessarily sustainable. There was post-production involved. And sadly, I sold that motorcycle. And so it kind of became a little painful, like looking at that footage, because I loved that bike, but it just wasn't the right time to have it. I sold it to get out of the note. And so, yeah, it is what it is. Life gonna life. But editing that video and looking at like, here's Dave from, a year ago, really living his best life on this bike. So I stopped doing it without any fanfare. This isn't an airport. I didn't have to announce my departures. No, I just stopped doing it. Now, we did get some questions. Hey, what happened to Throttle Thoughts? And some of those kind of thoughts which are kind of like mini podcast episodes, found their way into the beginning of this podcast episode. But even going forward, notice there was no kind of mini episode. There was no, epiphanal kind of, hey, this is something to think about at the beginning of this episode, because I'm going to try pulling out those little brain drippings and making their own short form video about them. For a while, speaking of short form, I was trying YouTube Shorts. I would record myself and I would say, hey, here's something here. This is, you can use a Wacom tablet. What about, your headphones? And those are really, really cool. And they did get a lot of traction, but like it just wasn't sustainable. And it wasn't sustainable in the way that I could come up with ideas and then I could go in, and the editing was getting more intense, because of the expectations that people have when they watch shorts with all the captions and the editing style. And it became too much. And so instead of forcing myself to do something that ultimately I didn't want to do because I felt I quote unquote should be doing it, instead, I just stopped doing it. Now, does that mean my subscriber count here on the YouTube channel has gone down or hasn't gotten as high as I would have hoped? Maybe the shorts, and maybe I'll revisit it, and I can do that too. But it's okay to try something. It's okay for that thing to not work, and it's okay for you to stop doing that thing. I mean, I tinker with the format of the podcast all the time. I try to kind of do that at the year points. I'm already thinking about what 2025 is going to look like. And if you'll tune into the week 52 episode of the podcast this year, then I'm going to kind of lay out my plans. But I have like a month to figure out. And there are probably going to be some changes. There are going to be some features that we bring back to the podcast. I guess I can go ahead and say, because if it doesn't work, I'll just stop doing it, right? One of the things that we've gotten some really good feedback from listeners and viewers is they love the fact, or they loved when I brought in cues from the community, composers from the community, kind of feature them and give a feedback video on that. And I had stopped doing that here in the podcast because I was worried that it was just kind of getting lost into the whole, or within the whole podcast proper. And so then I made it its own video. But as soon as I did that, then that became like a whole other video that needed its own other release schedule and its own other editing and everything. And I ended up taking something which was sustaining pretty well, pulled it, made it its own thing, that became unsustainable. And so then I thought, okay, well, we'll do one episode a quarter or every other quarter where I take everybody's cues and we have a ready for sync. This is a whole ready for sync thing. Ready for sync episode or a cue review where we just listen to a bunch of everybody's cues. And that was cool, but it lost the essence of A, featuring members of the community individually, and B, kind of if you got your cues placed, you had the opportunity to hear me give a really deep feedback session or feedback on your cue, and kind of spotlighting members of our community. That kind of went away, and so I think we're going to bring that back next year. It's something I'm going to try. I'm actually going to try again because we did it, and now I tried something new. And it didn't work. And again, that's okay. Couple more things. couple more lessons from doing 200 episodes of the podcast. And really, this has to do with as your business grows, either as a composer or, in my case, getting into publishing, getting into running a business, running a community, or running a business as a composer. And something that I wish I would have done much, much earlier is get a tax person. Incorporate, get yourself set up properly. In our case, Shannon and I are set up as S Corp LLCs. And we've just been getting destroyed the last several years in our taxes, which is a good problem to have, because if you're getting destroyed in your taxes, it means that you're making enough money for them to require more taxes. And if there's a threshold where if you kind of flip into this next bracket, then like payroll taxes and employee FICA and all that stuff, we were getting absolutely clobbered. So I wish I could go back to 2021, Dave, and say, okay, Dave, you need to go ahead and really ditch this sole proprietor idea, create a business entity, get a tax person involved, get an accountant involved, stop trying to do this all on your own, get some help. It's okay, which is really bitterly ironic because the second ever episode of this podcast, week 2, January 2021, it's okay to ask for help. And it took me way too long to take that lesson to heart. So get a tax person, incorporate as either an LLC or a C Corp. We chose an S Corp structure, LLC, and we have a lawyer now. A huge shout out to Dave Ratner. Is it Dave Ratner Esquire? No, I don't think. I think Esquire, that's a UK thing. Anyway, a shout out to Dave Ratner at Creative Law Network, who is amazing. But we should have had a lawyer a long time ago to help with contracts. And it's an investment, right? Lawyers aren't free, but if you are legitimately looking to make this a business, then you need to act like a business. And businesses are set up structurally to help with taxes, to shield liability, and they have accountants, they have lawyers, they take care of grown-up issues by setting themselves up as a grown-up company. So I wish I would have changed that. I wish I would have gotten more serious about lawyers and accountants and tax professionals a lot earlier. It could have saved us a lot of money, and also it saved us a lot of headache. And then finally, what did I learn from doing the last 200 episodes? And this one is I don't know how I feel about it, but in the sense of transparency, I honestly thought the channel would be bigger by now. As of this recording, we are sitting at 4,900 subscribers here on the YouTube channel, which is great, 4,904. And I would be lying if I said I didn't chew on that. If I didn't think, how do I move the needle on that? Why isn't the subscriber number growing? But I have to be careful because I'm committed to not chasing the algorithm and not tweaking my thumbnails to make sure they're super clickable, and being okay with long form episodes. That's okay. Why is that okay? Because that is what is sustainable to me. And if it's not sustainable, it's my very first point. If it's not sustainable, then I shouldn't be doing it. So I'm producing a podcast episode in a way that's sustainable, that minimizes the bandwidth that is required from me in the hopes that it is of value to you. However, over the last 4 years, not quite hitting 5,000 subscribers yet. Why is that? So I don't know. It might be that because we've been very methodical about how we are doing things here, and sticking just to production, library, and the sync industries, and doing what I do in the way that I do it. It appeals to a certain type of person. And the subscribers we have are really invested subscribers. Looking at subscriber numbers, I can see that about half of my views are coming from folks who have subscribed. I don't know if that means that YouTube isn't recommending the channel and the algorithm and all that, but I really can't get bogged down into that because that's not sustainable for me. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't curious why that number isn't greater. What I have to be careful is making sure that when I change things, when I try something and have determined that it doesn't work, is that coming from a real place of evaluation and reflection or feedback from my users, from my community, from the subscriber? Is it actually feedback coming from people who I trust their opinion, or is it coming from the fear that I'm doing something wrong? Is it coming from the data and the analytics? Because as soon as I start changing things because of the YouTube analytics, then as much as I want to shout, I'm not doing things because of the algorithm. Well, surprise, surprise, Dave. Yeah, you are. And yet, I did think that the channel would have more subscribers. I thought some of the ad revenue would probably be a little bit higher. Right now, it's about $20-25 a month. That's okay. And every 3 or 4 months, I get to actually withdraw from my Google account. But again, that's not the point. So yeah, I don't mean to end it kind of on a dour note here, but I'm going to believe though that the folks who are subscribed aren't subscribed because they're here for plucky, quick edited, fancy Mr. Beast style logic tutorials or whatever. I want to believe that if you're subscribed and if you're watching, it's because you are serious about the production, library, and sync music industry, and you are committed to really learning how to be a composer in this space sustainably. That's my hope. That's my hope. So, as we look forward to 201 and episode 250 next year this time, thank you. Thank you for joining me. If you're an OG episode 1, 2021, heck, if you're an OG episode 1 through 3 of 2019, thank you so much. And just know that I love and appreciate all of you, whether you're a subscriber or not. The fact that you've made it this far in the video, the fact that you've made it this far into this whole podcast thing we've got going on here in the community, thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. And here's to more. Here's to more. But what do you think? Do you have any thoughts, comments, or questions for me? Please let me know in the comments below. I do read all of those, even on episodes that are really, really old. Oh my gosh, right now, the comments on the Bebop Killed Jazz episode. Let me just say this. Some of the comments get really pretty salty. And tell me that you haven't actually watched the video without telling me you haven't watched the video. And when I get comments like, the title of this episode, it makes no sense. I mean, yeah, it's clickbaity. I said Bebop Killed Jazz. Now, hear my concept in context and see if you agree or not. But that's okay. They're free to comment. But a lot of hardline jazz guys really do not like that I say that Bebop Killed Jazz. And seeing comments on the Wacom tablet short that I did, seeing comments on the DAW Wars, the episode that I did on which DAW is the best. Again, another kind of clickbaity title. That one still gets comments. The Abbey Road Violins video still gets comments. And it's kind of like going back in time like a time capsule of where I was, what was going on, in my career, what was going on in the community. But all I do know is this. I feel like that I have found a sustainable way to do this, which is why you're still getting episodes every week. And as far as I know, you'll still be getting episodes all throughout next year and moving forward. So we're going to take a quick break. You're going to hear an alternate universe version of me tell you about how you can join 52Qs and also support the community. And when we return, we're going to take a listen to Unfinished Business, featuring sounds only from Matt Bowdler's Colossus 5 preset. We'll be right back. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors, subscribers of 52Qs, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly Q breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52Qs. You can just go to 52qs.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers? Then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52qs.com. That was Unfinished Business, again, featuring only sounds from Matt Bowdler, aka The Unfinished, his Colossus 5 preset pack, which just came out a few weeks ago. And again, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for this with my actual real life money. He hasn't asked me to do this. I am just an unapologetic fanboy of everything that he does. If you watch any of the live streams or anything, you will see how much I use of his sample or his preset packs, because they're just playable. And for me, Matt's Omnisphere presets kind of unlocked Omnisphere for me instead of just a ton of presets and getting overwhelmed with the stock sounds. I felt like the way he organized things, the way that he incorporates things like mod wheel and velocity usage and LFOs and all of that, it just, I don't know, something really, really clicked for me. And so I wanted to write a cue using only his sounds, and that is unfinished business. For you family and friends folks, you can see a complete cue breakdown of this cue on tomorrow's cue breakdown. And for you family, friends, and neighbors, if you want to see this cue be written from scratch from the beginning, including all of the sound choices and working things out into the final mix and master, then the archive for those live streams are currently up in the live stream area of the space, and you can check that out. But that is going to do it for me this week. You definitely want to tune in next week. Although we're approaching the end of the year, we're going to have our year-end kind of 2024 recap. We're not quite ready to do that. So next week, I am going to be talking about mood. What are the musical elements that define mood? And what happens if we start shifting some of those musical elements around, and how we can shift the mood and emotion within the same cue? So we are going to take a cue. I'm going to unpack the different elements that go into making mood and emotion, and then in real time show you how those things can shift just by changing some of the elements. So you definitely want to tune in for that. But once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have a ton of options out there, but if you want to pay it forward and if you got value out of the podcast, then maybe think about clicking that subscribe, hit the bell, the thumbs up. Let's see, did I hit them all? Did I hit all those YouTuber-y content creator things? Oh, a podcast. 200 episodes, and I don't know. Should I stop doing that? Does anybody care about that? Does anybody actually subscribe because somebody said subscribe? I don't know. It's one of those things that I feel compelled to do as a YouTuber and as a podcaster. So you know what? You know what I'm going to try? Maybe. I think I'm going to try stop asking you to subscribe, because you know the deal by now. If you like it, if you like what I'm about and you want to hear more of me and you want to see more glasses and bald heads and beards, which are looking pretty good, then you know to subscribe, and maybe I'll stop asking for that. In the meantime, I hope you've had an amazing week. And for our U.S. friends, I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. And just know that my heart is filled with gratitude for every single one of you. And I know that you're going to have an amazing next week. How do I know that, friends? Because I trust and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52 Cues, head over to 52cues.com.